This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
I'm a firm believer in things happen for a reason. And sometimes when you're in the middle of it, you have no idea why. And you're like, this stinks and I'm miserable and I don't like it, but there's a reason for things. And it opens other doors. So I'm happy it did.
Another episode of AOS right here, right now. Can't wait to get to it with our special guest, Holly McPeak, 3-time Olympian and bronze medalist in women's beach volleyball. Such an accomplished woman, off the court and on. Now, today, she hosts her own podcast called Sports Like a Boss. And if you haven't listened to it, make sure you go and download it right now on iTunes, on Apple iTunes, whatever they're calling it these days. And they always have great elite athletes, speakers, just fantastic people you'll want to listen to. So I really suggest checking her podcast out after you listen to today's episode. Okay, but the biggest reasons why you want to listen to her. She's been to 3 Olympics, took home the bronze medal in the 2004 games, and has won 72 career titles. She was the first woman to surpass the $1 million mark in earnings. She led the UCLA Bruins to the 1990 NCAA National Championship on the indoor court, of course. And, that's just a little bit about her. We're going to get into so much more of it when we talk to her. Of course, today you can see her on TV, on Pac-12 Network, ESPN, and pretty much anywhere that college volleyball is covered. And even better, Lauren Plum is going to be joining us in on the interview with her great volleyball insights, calling in from Germany since that's where she's playing right now. And this episode is made possible by our great friends at QuickTrack. QuickTrack is the first of its kind. It's an easy-to-use mobile app that allows anyone to create contracts for anything in 60 seconds or less. So for all you agentless athletes out there, Jacoby Brissett, I'm talking to you. Want to sign a contract? QuickTrack is going to be your best friend. QuickTrack lets you request amendments if the job changes along the way, the ability to get paid upon completion, and a full freelance directory to advertise your own work. I personally love QuickTrack for so many reasons. I use it all the time because in today's world, it seems like everybody has a side hustle going on. So with QuickTrack, you can make sure that you stay on top of your own work and get paid. So let's do this together, make everything official, and protect your work with QuickTrack. Download the free QuickTrack app today in the App Store or on Google Play. QuickTrack. QuickTract. QuickTrack. So let's get to it. Here's Holly. Holly, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. You are my first big gun to join the show, so it's such an honor having you here.
Big gun? I love that you referred to me as a big gun. Thanks for having me.
Well, anytime. Favorite thing to talk about to former athletes on this podcast is what they're doing today. And of course, right now, you've got a lot of things going on with your own podcast, plus your own TV gig, which keeps you in the college volleyball game at all times. So how much are you loving calling these games on TV?
Obviously, beach volleyball is my passion, and it's something I did for a long time. So it's fun to cover it for TV. I was able to cover the last 3 NCAA championships as well, and that's a lot of fun for ESPN.
You know, it's so interesting to watch now that beach volleyball is a collegiate sport, the difference between beach and indoor. And you played college volleyball for UCLA, who just won the beach national championship a couple months back, but with indoor, they're struggling a little bit. I know they made some off-season coaching staff changes. Where's the disconnect there between the two sports?
Well, it's interesting. You know, I think different programs at different schools, depending on recruiting and the athletes they have, go through different cycles. For a long time, UCLA was one of the best indoor volleyball programs in the country. And now, you know, they're just kind of in a downswing. Hopefully they'll be better this year. But UCLA on the beach has recruited well, and they're powered up to, you know, make another good run the next few years.
Well, and you're almost exclusively covering Pac-12 volleyball. So with UCLA dominating the beach and Stanford coming off another indoor national title, is it safe to say that the Pac-12 is the most competitive conference in the NCAA?
Well, yeah, if you look at UCLA and USC, the two best programs in the country, they're both in the Pac-12, so that's for sure.
Well, let's rewind back to the year 1990 when you led the Bruins to an indoor national
Do we have
championship.
to say that year? I'm kidding.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I meant 2012.
Yes. That's what I thought.
Regardless of when it happened. How has that experience helped you understand what these girls are going through while you're calling these huge games?
Oh, well, it's, I lived it, and I know what it's like to be a student athlete in college, and I know what it's like to be on a special group that won a title. I mean, we're still on a group text together, all these years later,
Wow.
And we stay in touch, and, we know what it takes, and I think the confidence, the work that we put in together as a group really is empowering. And I think it's helped us all along in our journey in life and whatever we're pursuing.
When did you decide to move from indoor to beach?
Well, I grew up playing beach volleyball. I grew up in Manhattan Beach, and it's a way of life here. So, there weren't a lot of avenues in beach volleyball for me to pursue at that time. So my vehicle was indoor volleyball, and I love indoor volleyball. So I played in high school at Maricosta High School, got a scholarship to college, played in college. And once I was done there, there were some professional beach volleyball opportunities, and it was definitely something I wanted to pursue. So that was right after I finished at UCLA. I went straight to the beach.
What was the most challenging part of that transition?
It wasn't a huge transition for me because I had grown up playing. But in terms of, there's, for people who haven't played beach volleyball, it's a different sport. It has similar technique and some of the skills, but it's a completely different sport. So my path was a lot easier than most. Most people didn't have that beach volleyball background that I grew up with. So the biggest adjustment was that I was my own boss, that I became my own boss. That was the number one thing that I had to learn how to manage as a professional beach volleyball athlete.
Makes total sense. Sorry, Holly. Lauren's just jumping in here. Hi, Lauren. What's up? Sorry, Holly was mid-answer when you called in.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for having me on. Sorry, I just got home from a practice in Germany.
Are you in Germany right now?
I am in Germany. I am playing for Wiesbaden.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah, just staying out of the real world as long as possible. You know how it is.
Absolutely.
We're just talking about Holly's transition from the indoor court to the sand.
I know. Do you ever feel like you want to redo now that beach volleyball is a collegiate sport?
No, I don't. And you know why? I loved indoor and I loved beach. And it now, for the most part, if you want to be at the best schools, you have to choose.
Yeah.
And that's why I wouldn't want to do it again. Yes, I would have loved to have competed for an NCAA title on the beach, but I wouldn't have wanted to choose. I love running an offense. I love telling my hitters what to do. I loved that whole feeling of working within a team. It's different when it's just you and your partner.
Right.
So yeah, I love them both.
That is hard to choose. I guess I'm glad I didn't have to choose, but it didn't really. My senior year, it became a legitimate option, and I was just like, no, I'm going pro. And now I'm pro, hard on the air quotes pro, but because college were for sure the best years. But I think about it all the time, maybe beach could have been, my game. Do I want to try that hard to completely quit my life over here and just go full to beach? I've thought about that. That's a tough decision, but I still love indoor. I'm with you. Running the offense, it's still really fun to me.
Well, the truth is you're doing the right thing, playing indoor for as long as you can. Make the money. Beach volleyball right now, there's very few people making enough money to pay the bills.
Oh my gosh.
I can count them on one hand. Yeah,
the top 1 to 5% maybe with that get good.
No, it's smaller than that.
You think?
It's
really?
A smaller number than that. Yeah, I can. Wow. I'm telling you, there's there's probably 5 or 6 women, maybe 5 or 6 American men that make enough.
Wow.
Define what enough is for you, but it's not a big number. And there's a lot of great former All-Americans that aren't making money, and they have a great lifestyle and they're on the beach every day. But at the same time, there's girls that were All-Americans at Stanford. You can look, see how much prize money they're making.
Right.
These are good athletes.
Oh, yes, for sure.
It's more of a hobby right now until you start making money.
Oh, very true. That's tough because I have so many friends still in that transition that are, practicing 2 times a day and coaching in between and coaching after. And it's crazy. It's a full time. That is exhausting for sure.
Well, you have to love it. You have to love it. And if you don't, it's time to move on and get a real job in the world out there.
Yeah.
Use your education.
That education.
Yep.
I'm can't wait to hear more about what your days at Cal and UCLA and all those places. So
why did you transfer?
Oh gosh. It's a funny question because Cal, I'm being inducted into that Cal Hall of Fame, and I was there 3 years and transferred to UCLA, and I have such mixed feelings about it because first of all, the coach came in my sophomore year and I tried to make it work, and we just did not see eye to eye. I'm super motivated. I wanted a really disciplined, structured environment where our team could flourish, and he did not bring that to the table. I mean, he would put in the wrong lineup, and Lauren, you know how important it is rotations.
Oh my gosh.
If you mess up the rotations, it throws off your offense and it throws off everything. And
that's just ridiculous. That's that's a level 1. Like that's like if you can't get rotations right, college should not even be in your repertoire. Like no way.
Exactly. And he was just unprofessional. I mean, there's just one thing after another. Yeah. So he said, I don't want you on the team. I said, I don't want to be on the team, basically. But the Cal athletic department said, hey, you can keep your scholarship and just stay in school here and you don't have to play. I'm like,
you're like, no way. I'm a competitor.
I'm like, I am an athlete.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I'm a student too, but I ended up going home in June, and I just thought about it. And I said, you know what? I'm not going back. I'm going to walk on at UCLA. So at that point you had to appeal for immediate eligibility. So I had to go in front of it was the Pac-10 back then. And I had to appeal for eligibility. And I found out a week into double days that they approved me. And then actually on day 2, I won a scholarship. So it really worked out. And the truth is, it was so meant to be because this was the best group of young women on a team that I've ever been involved with. Yeah. They were so hungry to win. They welcomed me, even though I was challenging for position. Mm-hmm. It was a special group, and we all went on a mission. And we lost one preseason game. I wasn't even starting that game, and we went undefeated the rest of the season. And it was so fun. It was just meant to be. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know what I'm going to say at the Cal Hall of Fame. But I mean, I guess they pushed me where I was supposed to go, and I appreciate that opportunity.
Well, that's a good way to look at it.
Right? I don't know. I got to look at it.
Well, I'm so glad that you still are valuing everything you did while you were there, because you honestly deserve everything that they're giving you. So, it would be rough if they just brushed you to aside just because you wanted to fulfill your dream in another place. So.
Yeah, well, they didn't give me the option. They didn't give me the option to fill it at Cal, so I had to go elsewhere. Yeah. But it worked out.
Oh, I meant for the award, for all your awards. Yeah. There, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank the Lord.
I'm a firm believer in things happen for a reason. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when you're in the middle of it, you have no idea why, and you're like, this stinks, and I'm miserable, and I don't like it, but there's a reason for things. Yeah. And it opens other doors, so I'm happy it did.
After you were done with college, did you ever even think about going to Europe, or was that, how much of an option was that when you were graduating?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm small, I'm 5'7", and I remember the indoor Olympic team, and they only wanted big players. They wanted big setters, whatever. And I just said, you know what? I don't like the politics of indoor. I did my thing. my passion is beach because nobody can tell me no. I can
Right.
play with whoever I
Yeah.
want. And if I win, you can't say anything.
Exactly.
You can't say you're too short. And I had a lot of that indoor. Even though I played across the front row, I could block. I was good enough, but they wanted 6 feet or over setters. And so for me, I just said, yeah, I'm done with indoor as much as I loved it. And I just went for the beach where I love to play and compete.
Yeah, it sounds like my life story, but somehow I'm still here in it.
I know, but you're relentless and you're not giving up and you're playing professionally and making money doing something you love.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm still trying to see how far I can go. We'll see.
Yeah.
What's really exciting is how we have just watched the sport of beach volleyball explode over the last couple of decades.
Yeah.
Everybody loves watching beach volleyball. Every 4 years, once the Olympics comes, you know this because you're an Olympian, it is one of the most watched Olympic events.
Yeah.
Why do you think that the fan base has grown so much?
Well, I think exposure, being on the world stage, anytime people are familiar with your sport, they look for it, after the Olympics. But the biggest thing right now in our sport is the grassroots have exploded on the beach. I mean, any given day in the summer, you can find hundreds of teams per age group, which is U18, U16, U14, U12, competing. And it's just amazing the numbers of young women who've fallen in love with the sport and are passionate about it.
Right. Back to the Olympics. First 2 games, you just barely missed the podium. That third trip in 2004, you win the bronze medal. Walk me through that winning moment for you.
Well, it was a blur. I mean, I have to tell you, the first 2 Olympics, I was competing with injured partners. So it was a little heartbreaking heading into the Olympic Games. And, it only comes once every 4 years, as you know. So it's rough. And if you're not 100%, it's tough to win a gold medal because everybody's been training full time and they're healthy and strong and they're gunning for you. So obviously, first 2 Olympics, both my partners were injured. And then my third Olympics, my partner was finally healthy. But the only team that we had to run into that we lost to was Kerri and Misty, who were on the rise and obviously a young, talented team and the best team to ever play on the beach at this point. So, but it was a dream to be on top of the podium. I don't remember a thing. I just remember it being amazing and a blur. And it was crazy because after we won our bronze medal match, they pulled us into the locker rooms. We had to get drug tested, tried to shower and get in our, podium jerseys. We didn't even get to watch the gold medal match. So by the time that I actually finished my drug test and everything, it was time to go on the podium. So it was kind of a whirlwind and a blur and everything else, but it was a wonderful moment. The Brazilians who won the silver medal are 2 of my very best friends. I'm close with Kerri and Misty, who won the gold, and it was us. So it was, 5 people that I loved, and I got to share the Olympic podium with them. So it was a pretty amazing moment.
And you played with Kerri and Misty a little bit. You did partner with both of them at some points, right?
Correct. I played with Misty in the 2000 Olympics. That she had a torn ab muscle prior to the Olympic Games. And then Kerri Walsh, I played 2 tournaments just along the way randomly when Misty was hurt.
Wow.
But, we've always been supportive of one another and good friends, and we live in the same area.
Like living in the mecca of beach volleyball.
Yep, for sure. Manhattan Beach is a great place to live if you want to train. I mean, obviously the weather, we have the best deep sand in the beach, and you're surrounded by high-level coaches and players to compete against.
Okay, before we continue, I got to tell you more about how much I am loving using QuickTrack right now. QuickTrack is the total freelancer solution to connect, agree, and get paid. With plug-and-play templates, QuickTrack is the simple solution to getting things in writing without the heavy-handedness that comes along with traditional contracts. AKA, if you don't understand how to read a contract, QuickTrack is going to be your best friend. Whether you're a personal trainer, graphic designer, or a pro athlete making money on the side, QuickTrack is the solution for you. Download the free QuickTrack app today in the App Store or on Google Play. QuickTrack, QuickTract, QuickTrack. Now, back to the show. Not like you were in some crazy contact sport, but do you ever look back and realize how lucky you are that you escaped the professional sports world still walking and healthy?
Oh, of course. I mean, I am very strong and healthy. I mean, I did have a hip replacement, so that's a little scary at my age, that I had to get that fixed. But for the most part, I mean, I still play volleyball. I run on the treadmill. I do Peloton all the time. I'm still super active and healthy, and I feel great. So I feel very fortunate. The fact that I was a setter, obviously, I think, I took a lot fewer jumps and swings, and my body's definitely intact.
From one setter to another, did you ever have Achilles problems?
Never.
Really?
The one thing when I was at Cal, they made me jump set every ball, and I got some shin splints.
Okay. Yeah.
1 year, but never anything else.
Oh,
no.
Wow. Nice. Good for you.
Thank you. I know it's always something.
It is. It really is. It's so hard to go through a whole season, a career without some nagging something, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's the trick of being a professional athlete. You have to learn how to manage it.
For sure.
And it's a full-time job for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's all I have to do over here anyways, just play and do podcasts and roll out.
And take care of yourself. Yeah.
So, Holly, when did that moment happen for you where you just realized your body was done, you were done emotionally and physically, and it was just time to retire?
When I retired, my priorities just changed. I was married, and there are other things, and I had been married for a long time, but it just wasn't my number one priority anymore. And I'm kind of one of those people who's all in. If I want to be the best, I'm going to be all in. And emotionally and mentally, I wasn't in the same place. Nomar Garcia, he was one of our guests, Garcia Parra, and he said, his gas tank was empty. And that's kind of how I felt. And to this day, and I'm a very large number in age at this point. I just turned 50. I still think I could go out there.
Congratulations.
I still think I could go out there and compete in the Manhattan Beach Open. Mentally, I am like, yes, but do I want to work every single day for 5 to 6 hours to get there? And I can't compete at the same level. I know that, but my tank was empty, and I had given the sport my all, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all, but it was the right time.
Well, no matter how right it is, that's still such a hard, mature decision to give up the thing that you've put your blood, sweat, and tears into your entire life.
Oh, it was very hard, and especially when you think you can be back at the same level next week. I just kept thinking, I had some nagging injuries. But it was just not as fun, not as fulfilling as it used to be. And like I said, it wasn't my top priority. So it was time to move on.
Was there any point when you felt like you didn't really know who you were, or you lost your identity because you weren't a volleyball player anymore?
A little bit. No, I knew who I was. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So that's kind of challenging. I think that's really hard for professional athletes. If you haven't kind of thought about what you wanted to do, my husband, the entire time I was playing, is like, oh, you need to think about, what you can do after. I'm like, I'm all in right now. I can't think about that. I don't want to do something halfway. But he was right. Because the first couple of years, I was like, I don't even know what I want to do.
Right.
And that's the thing about trying to get into the workforce, in your late 30s. What can you do? You're just entering the workforce, and it's challenging.
I think about that all the time.
Yeah, it's tough. It really is. I mean, fortunately for me, I made a lot of money, not a lot of money, but a decent amount. Right. And I was able to take a year off, and I was doing TV at the time. So I had kind of a part-time job, and 2 years later, I had my son, and the following year after that, we started a beach volleyball club in Manhattan Beach, Elite Beach Volleyball Club. And it's turned into a really fun business.
Cool.
And it's rewarding in so many different ways, helping young women obviously get better in the sport, but also get into college. It's been really rewarding.
Well, it seems like you have such a great perspective and grasp on life and what you needed to do to succeed. when volleyball was over for you. But that's not the case for most Olympians. We see so many people, whether it's Winter Olympics or summer, who struggle after their 2 weeks of glory is over, because all the fans think that Olympic athletes are gods and are so popular, they have everything. But, after that 2 weeks of fame is over,
Yeah.
so many of them turn to drugs, alcohol. They're dealing with their own demons. Many are dealing with different kinds of mental illness. Think of Michael Phelps and all that he has endured and overcome. You've seen that firsthand, and what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I did my own thing. Like in Australia, we had an apartment out in Bondi, so I was only in the Olympic Village for 2 nights. You're there for a reason, and for me, I just wanted to clear out the distractions. But being an Olympic athlete, it sounds amazing and it is great. It's a huge honor, but with it comes a lot of pressure. We did actually, Sports Like a Boss, we did 6 podcasts last week, and 2 of them were an Olympic runner, Susie Favor Hamilton, who had some mental illness. And so she described, the pressure it was like, and she was having a panic attack in one of her races during the Olympic Games and that kind of pressure. And I just felt for her because I know, and she said, I never had a sports psychologist to give me any tools to deal with this. And it's just interesting. Everybody has different ways of dealing with the pressure, and there's a lot, and you put a lot of obviously blood, sweat, and tears into your sport. And, once every 4 years, you get a chance to prove it. So that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Well, it's so great that a big stigma has been somewhat removed from mental illness in sports, but yet there's still so much of it that we are fighting in an uphill battle.
Yeah.
Lauren, I don't know if you feel the same way as I do, but especially at Oregon, I knew we had the resources there, knew the therapists and doctors were there, but so many of us didn't feel comfortable going in and using them.
Like laying down your whole life and weaknesses and everything to a random person who wasn't really following you day to day. Yeah, 100%. And that would be, because you don't know what the person's going to tell your coach or whatever. Even if you really were dealing with someone, it's really hard to trust people. So you take a very special, educated human being to really help someone, really in a good way that, could foster that trust and really help someone open up and, see what's really going on. So I think a lot of people and athletes just err on the side of oh, I'm fine, I don't need help, this is weakness. But it's tough. And I feel for a lot of people that go through that.
Yeah, I think sports, I think a lot more programs are offering, sports psychology, counseling on the side. I was actually working in Albany, New York. I was at an event called the Aurora Games, which featured only female athletes, 6 sports. It was on ESPN. So I flew home last night. But the reason I brought it up is because Jackie Joyner-Kersee, I don't know if you guys are familiar with her, one of the great track athletes of all time, was in the car with me on the way to the airport, and we started talking about sports psychologists. And she said, yeah, we used to have them around, but we didn't feel like it was okay to go use them. We're like, oh, we don't want to admit that we have a problem, and we didn't want to use them. So, and that was way back when. And she said, yeah, they're around, but we weren't that comfortable with it. So, it's finding a way to access the athletes where the athletes can trust them, and there's some privacy, and so they feel protected and safe.
Yeah, I think we're working more towards hopefully that safe environment every year with the NBA now with their mental health positions on every team. That's a good start.
Huge.
So, hopefully that'll trickle down to a lot of other sports and a lot of other across the playing field. So we'll see what happens with that.
Let's talk a little bit about your podcast now. Sports Like a Boss. You host it with Anne-Marie Anderson.
Yeah.
I really enjoy listening. You guys have such a diverse group of guests, from former athletes to motivational speakers, all of these incredible role models that have fantastic stories off the field. for one thing, Sports Like a Boss is just such a boss title.
Thanks.
But how did you guys come up with the idea to start the show?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but we broadcast a lot together on whatever network wants us. We work together a lot. Anne-Marie was a volleyball player at Hofstra. Then she went and worked for ESPN for 28 years, behind the scenes, never on camera. So then so she's been on camera probably for 15 years now, but so she's had a long experienced career in sports while I was playing professionally. So she knows what she's doing. She's been on the producer side. So when we broadcast, she said, hey, let's do a Facebook Live show and we'll talk volleyball and see what happens. And it turns out we had huge numbers for our Facebook Live show talking volleyball.
Oh my gosh.
There wasn't really anybody who talked about collegiate volleyball and took questions and answered questions. And we love it. So we're like, okay, why not? One of our shows had like over 100,000 reaches. And we're like, whoa, what is going on? So, so we did it for like a year. And then we actually won a broadcast award because we did that. But it was a fun little project.
That's so true. There hasn't been much about volleyball. Like that's for sure.
Right? Can you imagine if you're like, especially you over in Germany, how would you know what's going on in collegiate volleyball in the U.S.? If you want to tune in,
there's just those little sites where people just have like random bits of information where they heard this and heard that. It's not any like real concrete base evidence and information. It's a little tough. My mom always goes through all the comments and everything. Like, oh, I heard this girl. I'm like, I have no idea. Like that's so hearsay.
Exactly. So you want it from credible sources who are doing their research and no. So we enjoyed doing that. That was fun. And then we go, why don't we have we know a friend who owns Podcast One, and we actually were just having lunch with him randomly. And he said, hey, I would love it if you guys had a podcast. He actually asked me, and I said, well, I want to bring Anne-Marie Anderson. And then we tried to figure out what we were going to talk about. And we kind of wanted to use, hey, we're athletes, but we learn life lessons from sports and experiences and overcoming obstacles and dealing with all sorts of things. And the lessons we learn, how we apply them to our life, our jobs, our families, our friendships, everything we do, we wanted to kind of share that. And everybody has a different story. Everybody has a different philosophy, but that's kind of where we started. And oh my gosh, we went through 500 names. We couldn't figure out a name. It's not that easy. A lot of names are taken, and we ended up with Sports Like a Boss. So we just kind of like, hey, both of us are former athletes. We're both, doing well in our field and just kind of want to share and talk to people who've been successful, who are former athletes or a coach or a speaker or a, sports psych guy, whoever that is who can help people. And literally, if they help one person out of all of our listeners, we've helped somebody. I mean, that's great. And Anne-Marie and I are loving it because we're learning. Every podcast, we're like, that was fun. We're, and it's hard work. But we're enjoying the learning part.
That's awesome. Holly, do you ever listen to yourself back on the podcast and just critique the crap out of yourself? Like, how do you go about doing that? Because I did one podcast and I listened back to myself and I was just like, I think I don't want to do this anymore, but I mean, it's it's my first time, but
it's really important to listen to yourself back. I mean, I had to do it with TV, and I was awful my first year. Oh my gosh, I was just cringing. And I still find that if I use the one word too often, that I have to be critical of myself.
Filler words.
Yeah, and it's important to critique yourself, and I think you get better. I even think from our first podcast, we've gotten a lot better. And we have experience talking and asking questions, so well,
it's a totally different atmosphere. Like the podcast world is a little bit more conversational and casual.
For sure.
That's hard for me to get used to.
It's different. It's more comfortable, but at the same time, you don't want to be talking so much that you're not getting your guest in, and you know what I mean. It's like it's a balance, and
right.
I think the interesting thing are the challenges, like finding new subjects, new people, and then getting people on your podcast. It's not that easy. We've been really fortunate. We know a lot of big people. A bunch of these people live. Nomar Garcia lives, 2 blocks from us. Steve Nash lives 10 blocks from us. So, we're trying to use those people, and they've been really receptive and helpful, which is really nice.
Yeah, I thought your episode with Amy Van Dyken last week was extra special. That was really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's crazy because her accident, I didn't realize she had a serious head injury, a traumatic head injury along with her spine injury.
Wow.
So when I reached out to her on social media, and I wasn't sure if her long-term memory was affected or what. I just had no idea. And she immediately responded. She's like, I remember you. We were on the Oprah show together. We had breakfast. We worked with Speedo.
Wow.
And she remembered everything. I was shocked. She said it's more her short-term memory that she struggles with, and that she used to be on sports radio and isn't because it's harder for her short-term memory. But she can recall the stuff prior. So I found that amazing.
Well, season's just started. Any matchups you're super psyched about calling this year?
Well, I always get excited about indoor collegiate volleyball season because it takes me back. I used to love going back to school, doing the double days, just gearing up for another season because, as you know, Lauren, it goes fast and it's over and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You're like, oh. So I'm really excited. As a commentator, I feel like I get to cover it and experience it again. So it makes it really fun. But I have Stanford, who is the number 1 preseason ranked team at Florida in 2 weeks. So I'm super excited about that.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, that's how I'm kicking off my season. But there's a lot of great matches on my schedule. I don't know. I think I have Stanford at Oregon in October. So I'm excited about that. I always love going to Eugene.
Yeah. Oh, it's so fun.
That's a fun environment. I really miss Oregon.
That's where Lauren and I became friends.
I love it.
Yeah.
Lifelong friends.
Yeah, unfortunately, I forced her to be my friend.
No, I was telling her about in our last podcast, I was so grateful. So she was a female cheerleader, obviously, and they would come and cheer for our games, which made it feel like the environment was so much more just fun, just a big time environment made a huge difference, when we finally started to draw some of those crowds, when we got ranked. And
you got big crowds.
Well, no, I'm saying we did, but having those little things like having other female cheerleaders cheer for you and not just for football and not just for men's basketball would just really felt like, this was really important too, which of course we all thought it was, but to the outside world to have cheerleaders, with us supporting us too, that made it feel so great, and even
like a real sporting event.
Yes. And even for you to say, this is one of my favorite games I even cheer for, it was just,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. It was really so incredible.
Fun. So I'm so grateful that we got you guys and we could hang out and make a friendship out of it. It's so rare that female athletes and cheerleaders and all that stuff. So again, I'm just grateful, but yeah.
Yeah. How have you enjoyed watching Oregon and the program that you helped create and put on the map?
Oh, it was so fun. I really came at a perfect time in a perfect system. And like Holly, I watched you growing up and it was, really fun. So I'm just so excited that I'm even on this interview right now. But I was so happy to go to Oregon and it was a perfect fit. Really, it was just an awesome system and we had fast hitters and good ball control. And it was just kind of that perfect wave of hardworking people, like the kind of the last, I feel like, not last, but the blue collar athletes that are a little undersized but work their tails off every day, like day in and day out, come in to do extra reps. So it was a really fun camaraderie and group of people.
Lauren is still the leader and assist at Oregon.
It doesn't surprise me. She came in as a freshman and killed it.
You too.
What do you think about the coaching change at Oregon on the volleyball side?
It was a little tough because I have such a place in my heart, for Jim Moore. He was the one that, took me out of high school and said, look, you're it. Like, yeah, you're undersized and half the teams don't want you because, you're undersized and we're looking for this type of setter, this left-handed, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, well, good luck having that girl get anything out of system, So Jim looked at me and watched me play and said, you're it, like we're going to make it to the national he told me this in my recruiting trip, we're going to make it to a national championship your junior year. And this is the plan. And we followed exactly, to schedule, to the plan. And we worked our butts off when we got there. And it was a little tough in that national championship game. We just served like lollipops and made Texas look like the All-Americans that they are, can't play the same ball against Texas. They're just too athletic and too good. But then I think after that wave of really blue collar athletes, as I was talking about before, kind of left the program, and you start to get some newer athletes who are super talented, but just not a little entitled, they weren't really willing to put in the work. And it was just so tough for Jim, being such a hardworking person. And I can't even imagine nowadays recruiting, trying to figure out that type of athlete, which one's really going to be that diamond in the rough kid that's going to follow out through her career, not just wanting the scholarship or the Oregon Nike stuff or whatever it may be, So I think with that change kind of happening, a couple kids didn't buy into the system, and it just got really frustrating, and things started to, crack on some different edges. So,
well, it's interesting. I just started taking notes on this new season, and ESPN every year sends us like some updated stuff, and they talked about all the transfers.
mm-hmm.
There's 4 girls that transferred out of Oregon this past year.
Yeah.
4 girls, maybe 5. I was like, wow. So it wasn't just Jim. I feel like if the athletes aren't healthy, they don't stick it out. They don't grind it out trying to earn their position. They just transfer to where the grass is greener.
Yeah, and that's true. And people have to understand the grass isn't always greener, and the grass is greener where you water it. You put the work in, and it's not going to be easy. I mean, Jim used to say, if it was easy, everyone would do it. So, and
exactly,
that's really very true. And I think if you look across the board in all collegiate sports, the amount of transfers, I would assume, have gone up significantly because it's
huge. Yeah. The fact that you can transfer within conference is crazy.
Right. I don't know how I feel about that, but I mean, I understand some situations for sure. But it's tough. It's like,
I mean, I transferred within conference. Obviously I had to appeal, but for a while it was, you sit out a year, you lose a year.
Oh yeah.
But now it's just wide open. Elise Ford, who was at USC one year, was playing on Arizona State the next season.
Right.
And we're seeing that a lot now. I saw a bunch of names on the transfer list who transferred within the conference.
Right. It's funny. Elise Ford is now playing in Germany. We're going to play against each other. We're playing in the same league.
No way.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I had no idea.
Yeah. And to even get weirder, I dated her half brother in high school.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh
so
such a small world.
I know. I dated like 2 people in my life, and that was one of them. So that's
funny.
As irrelevant as that is to this podcast, you were the one that brought it up first.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I am total agreement with you. So we'll see what happens over the next, I'd be very interested to see this next generation of athletes and what direction or what rules will come up and all the transfers and people sticking it out. It's a tough gig to get into college now, I think.
Oh, for sure. I'm looking, oh my gosh, I'm looking at the transfers. Setters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12 notable Division I transfers. Setters.
That's crazy.
It's weird. I'm seeing Peyton Chang from Stanford to Northwestern for her senior year.
I mean, part of that was, though, I think with Jim, I think sometimes he would try to motivate some of the older players or some of the players on the team and say, hey, we have this really good person coming in, like you're going to have to work really hard. But he would kind of oversell a lot of these kids sometimes. So sometimes people would get scared and transfer, The head coaches coming
interesting.
and talking about, hey, this kid's going to be legit, and I don't know if it was his, he wanted to motivate them or, like trying to light a fire under him, but if that scares a lot of girls, a lot of girls are scared of competition.
Yeah. Interesting.
Would you ever think about college coaching, Holly?
You know what? Not right now. Because I own a beach volleyball club.
No, I'm like before going into any of that.
Oh, prior to that?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I became a beach pro, and it literally took over my time immediately. I was a graduate assistant for 1 year at UCLA, and then it was like pretty much full time, like 9 months out of the year I was playing, and those were my 3 months off. I would usually go to Brazil for a month and train there.
Wow.
So I didn't really have the time to commit to it.
Right.
And I have an 8-year-old son, and I don't want that type of a time commitment right now.
Yeah.
So I feel like I kind of have 3 or 4 part-time jobs, and I'm kind of the boss of my schedule. So I've got my podcast, I've got my TV, I've got my beach volleyball club. And so I kind of juggle those, and then I do some private coaching as well. So I juggle those 4 things, but I can, cut things, add things, and it's fun being my own boss.
No, that's incredible.
And then the podcast title is so relevant.
Well, it's like a boss. I love it.
Well, Holly, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been such an honor chatting with you. And
yeah, definitely.
So glad that Lauren could join us too, and from Germany.
But I'm so proud of you for going off and doing this. This has really took a lot.
Oh, stop.
Hey, Holly, thank you so much for taking your time. See ya.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, Bridge.
Have a great day. Bye, Lauren. Great to talk to you. Good luck.
If you love the show just as much as we do, make sure you subscribe, 5-star, and give us a rating if you are feeling up for the challenge. We would love to hear from you. We want to know also what you want to hear on the show. Next week, I've got an amazing interview with a physical therapist and author who specializes in concussion protocol, and she wrote a book on concussion in sports for young kids. And we're going to talk a lot about football and the health of the game. Can't wait to get that episode out there, especially with NFL season kicking off this week. Go Chargers. And I'll talk to you guys next week.